Earlier in this course, of course, we read G.E. Moore's. What was the name of that chapter? I'm sorry. What philosophy is? Is that right? I'm sorry. It come to right. But one of the things obviously he was trying to do there is sort of give an account of what the common sense view of the basic philosophical questions was about what existed and how the different things that existed related and things like that. And one of the things that came up in our conversation in the discussion board was his notion that a belief in God was not common sense. That the common sense view of God was that he might exist, and then again he might not exist, but I don't have proof either way. I mention that because right away in Meditation 1, Descartes starts speaking about God, and I would say I'm not being a very educated person at all, and not knowing enough about European history, and certainly not knowing enough about religious belief in the 17th century in France. But I would say that there is something to the idea that belief in God was common sense in those days, at least. So when Descartes starts talking about God, you may say, well, why is he bringing up God in a book that's about knowledge? That's a good question. God used to come up all the time in all sorts of contexts because God was sort of everywhere in culture and in thought. As we'll see, Descartes in this book will offer a defense and a kind of argument for the existence of God. But he brings them up much earlier, right here in Meditation 1, right? And for a very specific reason, though, right? Brings in God, and that's because he's trying to doubt everything, and it ain't so easy to doubt everything, right? I mean, is that little speck out the window there? Is that a bird or a leaf? I don't know. I doubt whether it. Yeah, that's easy to doubt, right? That's easy to doubt because it's clear to us that it's not clear to us, right? But can I doubt that I'm looking at my hand? I'm trying to get it in the right spot. Can I doubt that I'm looking at my hand right now? That I have a hand and my hand is there? Harder to doubt, right? And as Descartes sitting by the fire, can I doubt that I'm really in this room? Can I doubt that I have a body? Uh, the first, of course, thing that he says is, well, it seems immediately evident to me that I do have a body, that I am sitting in this room, that I am looking at my hand right now. Right? But don't I have dreams where all that seems to be happening and it's not really happening? I have dreams every night where I seem to be walking through the world, talking to people, doing things, and they seem incredibly real to me, but they're all illusions, they're all hallucinations. One of the things he says right away is that, man, when it comes down to it, I don't know if I'm awake right now. I could be dreaming. Uh, Now, that is a very contested thing in the history of philosophy, right? But it is an important step in terms of the doubting thing. Right? But then he says an interesting thing. He says, even if all of my experience, in terms of like, is this really my hand? Am I really in the room right now? That even that could be illusions, hallucinations, but the elements out of which those things are composed, things, he talks about, well, you can make up a mythical figure like a centaur, but it doesn't really exist, like a half man, half horse type deal. But it's composed of things that do exist, real men, real horses, right? Just mixed together in unusual combinations. But those basic elements we assume are real. So he's using it as an analogy in terms of, well, the things that appear to me to be true, it may be, they may be false and illusions, but the elements, the basic shape, colors, extensions, and things like that, those must be real, the building blocks. Can I really doubt those things? Can I doubt in the very reality of something like physical extension or shape or number? Um, Difficult, right? Very difficult. And here's where he brings in God. Is, well, I realize, or I believe that there's an all-powerful God who created me. I believe that, at least. And wouldn't he have the power to deceive me even about those basic things, the most basic things? He says yes, right? It's very important. Now, this brings up all sorts of theological difficulties about God, right, which will come in later. God is a very important part of Descartes' meditations, and we'll see that. Um, but he can imagine that he's being deceived by an all-powerful being, even in the most basic of his beliefs, like 2 plus 2 equals 4, or that the same thing can't be true and false at the same time, his basic beliefs of mathematics, logic, geometry, right? It's part of mathematics. So God does come in here, and his first appearance is, well, even the things that I'm not really sure I can doubt. Well, if I bring in the idea of an all-powerful, deceiving being, a God who, for one reason or another, wished to deceive me, then it's possible that all this stuff that seems obvious to me could be doubtful. So that God makes his appearance here for specific reasons, and makes a lot of appearances in the meditations, and is a very important part of the overall argument.